Hey everybody, welcome back. We got week 10 of Double D's. I'm Daryl,
And I'm Dave.
and we're here with some fantasy football for you this week. Injuries. Now, injuries, it's not quite as bad as the week before where it seemed like everybody, their brother, and their mother was banged up. We got a couple running backs coming back this week. Supposedly, Carlos Hyde, that sprained AC joint. Well, you know what? He's still wearing a no-contact jersey in practice. Is he going to play or not? He's hoping to. I don't know. Dwan Harris, he might be stealing some touches even if Hyde does play.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough matchup for him either way. I mean, I'm kind of leaning away from the 49ers backfield this week, but at the same time, if Carlos Hyde is ready to go and they tell you that, there's no way that he's not your RB2 at minimum there. Yeah, that's a tough one there. It's some very good fantasy stuff going on here.
Fantasy stuff, Dave.
What do we
We're
got
full
next?
of fantasy stuff. Dougie Martin. He's coming back this week, supposedly. Is he going to be limited? Peyton Barber, is he going to be, are they splitting carries? Is Martin going to come back and just get 25 touches this week? That's a tough one. These two backs need to be kept an eye on for Sunday. Be aware of Peyton Barber, Dwan Harris. Same team here, Will Fuller, Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller's talking being 100%, ready to go this week. Will Fuller, he's day-to-day with a leg injury. Kind of important there to leave out.
Yeah, that's huge there. I mentioned that last week that'd be a big difference in the Denver defense. Here's something that people don't understand. With Talib out, you would think, oh, that really opens up the passing game. And you didn't see a big week from Amari Cooper last week, who Talib would have been on. But here's another thing. They also know that it's huge in the run game. If you have a weakness that you think is going to be exposed, that team is preparing for you to have woes with the offensive side of the ball, meaning Amari Cooper there. I really think the Raiders did the right thing there and attacked Denver on the ground last week. Look for a lot of that this week, too, from the Saints. I think Mark Ingram and Hightower are a big part of this offense. Talib means a lot to the Denver defense. I definitely can't wait to see him back as a Denver Bronco defense owner.
I agree with you there, Dave. I mean, teams have been attacking Denver against the run, and they're kind of doing what's being done to Denver is kind of similar with what's being successful against Seattle. When they establish the run like that, it opens up everything. And without a Talib back there, Denver's secondary is a little shaky.
I agree.
All right, Tevin Coleman still out. Jacob Tamme out. I know you're liking Adam Hooper.
Yeah, and Ware would be the backup running back behind
Yes,
Freeman.
yes.
He is a good player to look to add.
TJ Ward, isn't it?
TJ Ward.
Yep.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah, he's someone he's a good DFS flyer if you didn't want to go Freeman at a slightly pricey, a little more price. I don't think you need to go out there and panic and go grab Ward. Obviously, as a Tevin Coleman owner, you're either going to hold on to him or you're going to move on to someone else. Someone that we have possibly mentioned may have not gone through here. CJ Procise,
Yes.
hamstring injury popped up with Christine Michael. I mentioned it was either last week or the week before. I liked Procise to take over the complete starting job by week 14. It looks like it can be as early as this week in week 10. If he's out there on your waiver wire, give him a look. He's going to be a high-volume player out of the backfield in the passing game no matter what. I almost would like to see him remain as the number 2 this week going up against the Patriots. They don't give up a lot on the run, but out of that passing game in the backfield, such as a LaShawn McCoy, they can give a lot up to a player of that caliber.
I agree there, Dave. Procise, he's one of the top ads. He really is. We touched on Dwan Harris. He's a good guy to keep an eye out on in that offense. Peyton Barber, if Doug Martin. Ladarius Green. He's somebody that they keep talking about it coming back. If he's there and you can snag him up and stash him, I think he's a good stash.
He's a great stash play. He's someone that I'm still not starting or flexing this week. I want to see what he can do. Let's remember what he did out in San Diego. He had a lot of Antonio Gates owners worried. I remember last year I was one of them at some point, and I handcuffed Ladarius with him and sometimes played them both. They had a lot of value there. I'm excited as a Steelers fan for the Ladarius Green return. When it happens, just stay tuned with that. And again, he is a very good stash player.
Speaking of the IRs coming back, Dion Lewis. If he's still there,
Dion.
you got to get him. But
Yeah.
I mean, is he going to come back in? Is he splitting time with James White? That's a situation to monitor there. How effective you think he's going to be?
Last year, he had the highest elusive rating out of any player in the NFL by a wide margin. This man has true RB1 upside. If you're in a keeper league, I've said this weeks ago, over 3 weeks ago, you need to go grab Dion Lewis. He needs to be on your team. I actually just pawned him out in a trade this week. Kind of interested to see how that pans out. He has huge upside. James White, to me, becomes obsolete in that offense when he comes back, and I think it only gives Gronk even more value. Again, I say it every week, Gronk's good for 4 catches and a touchdown, which he showed again last week. I believe he had 4 or 5 with his touchdown. We'll go through that game. But having Dion Lewis out there opens him up even more than having to worry about just James White. Now the defender defending Gronk has to turn around and hope Dion Lewis doesn't have that ball and is running up the field.
I agree with you. Lance Kendricks. This is somebody that's kind of flying under the radar recently because he plays for the Rams. Now, let's face it, their offense isn't what it is, but he's somebody you really got to keep an eye on if you're desperate for a flex or a tight end. Keenum threw the ball 46 times last week. In the last 3 weeks, Kendricks has 29 targets. He's averaging 14.3 points per game in PPR. He's worth a look. J.J. Nelson. I really like him. I think he's got a great matchup against San Francisco. It's a shame Carson Palmer's showing his age.
Getting back to the tight end spot there, you mentioned a couple there in Hooper and Kendricks. Hunter Henry is questionable to return this week. I did mention Gates owners being worried about when they handle Darius Green. This is a man that, again, can either help or hurt Gates, so stay tuned for that as well. And if I had a spot to add this week, I told you this previously to recording, I would have grabbed J.J. Nelson myself. I think he's going to have a monster week, and he is going to be the best wide receiver for Arizona, possibly to come. I don't hate Larry Fitzgerald, don't get me wrong, but Nelson is a man on a mission.
I agree. I actually did pick him up, and am starting him. All right, another guy. We talked about this guy weeks ago when they signed him, Ronnie Hillman. Is he going to have a chance in this backfield? He's kind of worth looking at. He had 8 touches last week for 82 yards. Yeah. On a team that's struggling to run the ball or even move the ball.
Yeah, he's worth looking at, but again, that's in a fantasy perspective, I kind of don't like it. It turns into a 3-headed monster here. In all honesty, my favorite running back here still in a PPR standard doesn't matter type thought process is Matt Asiata. You get the ball down to the goal line, he's going to be the one they're going to want to pound it in with. Now, if Ronnie Hillman gains trust, he can easily become that type of back. He doesn't need to be a first or second down back. He doesn't need to be the third down passing back. You can use this man in all types of formats. But, I mean, Denver's seen what he was. Maybe they're a little better there in Minnesota. I don't see it. I still like the McKinnon-Asiata combo as of now.
I do too. I think he's got the talent to take over in the backfield. Is he going to get the opportunity? Kind of doubtful. Games this week. We got Packers, Titans. Okay, now this Packers team, they kind of were getting back into that relaxed mode from a couple of years ago. Okay, Rodgers broke out. He's got 10 touchdown passes since week 7. But guess what? All those games are at home. Now they start a 3-game road trip. It's the number 1 run D versus the number 3 run game. This Packers team has made the playoffs 7 years in a row. They're 4-4. They need a win here. I still think DeMarco gets his. I know you can't compare him to Zeke, but Zeke didn't have a problem running on this team. I think the Titans have a good enough offensive line. DeMarco's going to be able to establish a run game. Cobb, Jordy, Devontae, Ty. How do you pick one? If you got 2 of them, now you're really in a dilemma. These guys, you don't know which one's going to get it which week in and week out. I got Titans 28, Packers 20. I don't think Mike McCarthy and his questionable play calling and adjustments are going to be enough against DeMarco.
Some comments Aaron Rodgers released after the game this week. He was very troubled and, I guess, baffled by the reasoning of the lack of play by Randall Cobb. He was cleared to play. He wanted to see him on the field more. We're going to see a big Cobb up crease this week. Again, I agree with you in the mess of the wide receiving play there. Now, that mess is a good mess to have. I mean,
Yes.
you have a lot of good wide
As a
receivers
team, as a
there.
fantasy perspective.
If you
though.
have any one of the players you named, you're going to play them. Something we didn't know last week, Ty Montgomery was on a snap count. I didn't know that as a Ty Montgomery owner. Still as an owner, I'm happy. 7 rushes, 53 yards, 3 receptions, 38 yards. Starks is healthy. He's not completely cleared to come back. They're not certain if he's going to play this week. I went and handcuffed him to Ty Montgomery. How weird is that to say? Last week, Marcus Mariota, though, 27 for 43, 313 yards, 3 TDs, 2 interceptions. He had 3 rushes for 14 yards and 1 fumble loss. I like this man as a quarterback. I have him ranked in my top 5 this week. DeMarco Murray, look for him to get 20 touches this week. Henry is back and available. We're not sure to see if they're going to try and rest DeMarco's toe a little bit and give Henry some carries. I wouldn't mind seeing them doing that. The Titans do have a bye week coming up in week 13. You want to rest them as much as you can. I do have this game, Titans 24, Packers 23.
Very close. Very close. Denver in New Orleans. Now, New Orleans is they're 4-4, but they've won 4 of their last 5 games. So they've kind of turned it around a little bit, only because of their offense. They're averaging 325 plus passing yards a game, number 1 in the league. They're averaging 30 points a game, scoring second in the league. They've got a really balanced offense with this Hightower Ingram combo. Michael Thomas, he's turning into a very, very good fantasy receiver. With Talib out, guess what? Brandon Cooks and Drew Brees, I feel they're going to have a field day. Brees does what Brees does at home here again against Denver. Denver, even though they're 6-3, they're kind of in a free fall. Teams have figured them out. Talib being out hurts them. I have New Orleans 31, Denver 17.
Trevor Siemian, 18 for 37, 283 yards, 2 TDs, and an interception last week. To be noted there, Emmanuel Sanders dropped, I believe it was about a 40, 50-yard bomb in his hands when he came down to catch it. He did drop that. That would have boosted his numbers and Simeon's up. I'm still a Denver believer. I think they're only going to get better as the year goes on. This is a rough game for them this week. Booker is the man still to own in Denver. Don't worry, it would not hurt if you have a spot to go grab Bibbs. But, man, there's just something about this game. It's, who dat? Woo! Drew Brees is on fire this year, people. I'm talking 28 for 39, 323 yards, 3 TDs, no interceptions. Ingram, 15 rushes, 158 yards, 1 TD, 2 receptions, 13 yards, and a touchdown with a complimentary player in Tim Hightower that had 23 rushes, 87 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 reception for 15 yards. We had a new wide receiver emerge, Michael Thomas, looking to be the favorite for Drew Brees. He makes it look easy. Unfortunately, Cooks did not get a touchdown last week. 5 receptions for 66 yards. Still is not horrible. There is something about this team that gets me excited, Daryl. What is it about the Saints that just fires me up?
I think it's because they play football like you're playing Madden. They just air it out all day. They have the ability to run the ball, but they don't have to. Breeze likes to throw. This guy just, I'm waiting for him to get old. Carson Palmer's doing it this year. Breeze and Brady, once these guys are out of the league, you know, the quarterbacks, these guys are still so good. I love seeing Breeze throw the ball.
And he makes it look so effortlessly. Now look at it like this. You just said they don't even run the ball that much.
They can, but they don't.
15 rushes for Ingram, 23 for Hightower, and you still see a great passing display.
Yep.
They're
still putting up 300 yards.
Could
they're
you
so
imagine
balanced.
if they had a defense?
Oh God, they need a defense. But hey, Breeze kind of handcuffed them a little bit earlier in the year on what they could do. Not earlier this year, but earlier in the past couple of years. You're paying him $30 million a year. At this point, he's got to be smart enough to say, "Hey, I made my money. I'll take that Tom Brady pay cut. Build me a defense." How do you build a defense when you're paying a guy $30 million? I know he renegotiated for cheaper, but still, it really hurt him.
Agreed. And with that being said, I have the score Saints 28, Denver 26.
Once again, Rams Jets. All right, the Jets. They're 4-4. They're worse than that. Their center, Manigault, he's got a sprained ankle. He's going up against Aaron Donald. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Fitz is kind of banged up. They're giving up 272 yards passing on defense. Case Keenum threw it 46 times last week. Gurley only carried 12 times. And the Rams only have 1 touchdown in each of the last 2 games. But I have Rams 17, Jets 10. I think the Rams defense is going to get after Fitz enough. They're going to shut down Forte as much as you can shut him down. They're going to key off of him. And I think it's going to be a sloppy, ugly game.
What an awful game to have to talk about after Drew Brees.
Not much more to say.
I mean, Forte, he looks like he's coming around. He's doing some flashy things. He's finding the end zone. I'm sure he's making fantasy owners happy. I see a lot of big things happening for the wide receivers of the St. Louis Rams this week. And by big things, I mean there might be 3 of them that have 50 yards and 2 of them with touchdowns. It's insane out there. This is going to be a crazy game. Girly fries, maybe if you throw some chili and cheese on that, who dat? Maybe he'll come back into the picture and be someone that has fantasy relevance week in and week out. I mean, I know he's still putting up good numbers, people. I mean, I'm going to get some grief for this and some flack, but move the man. If you're in a keeper league, move this man for a lot. If you're in a redraft league, people are probably turning down every trade offer that you have. Remember, we are here. I just helped a gentleman on Twitter this last week who would like to remain anonymous. With that being said, I have the LA Rams 21, the New York Jets 17.
Wow. 3 in a row without differing on picks so far, Dave. All right. We got Falcons, Eagles. We got the Bird game. Where's Bird, man, when you need him to bring this game to you?
Bad.
All right. Falcons sit at 6-3. They're clicking. They've had 10 days off. Matt Ryan, he's a solid MVP candidate. He's got 119 passer ratings so far this year. If the season were to end today, it'd be the 4th best ever. This isn't an away game for him. He's from Philly. I think they go in there. Guess what? The Eagles D, it's there. They do force turnovers. They force turnovers based off of their front 7 getting pressure. Their secondary's a little weaker. They struggle in man. They can't stop Julio and Matt Ryan. I'm sorry. Falcons 34, Eagles 21. Sorry, I got my birds mixed up.
There's someone who stands out to me in this game for the Falcons. Week in and week out, he just seems to be making plays, and that's Taylor Gabriel. Last week, 5 receptions, 52 yards, 2 rushes, 24 yards, and a touchdown. This man is on my ad list this week. If you need any help, I mean, you don't even have to be desperate, but you want guaranteed double-digit points, standard or PPR, Taylor Gabriel is being utilized in a lot of fantastic ways on a very fantastic team. Devontae Freeman, 17 rushes for 77 yards, 2 receptions, and 28 yards. 6 total people rushed the ball for the Falcons last week. Matt Ryan had himself 25 for 34, 344 yards, 4 TDs, but he had 2 fumbles and lost one of those. He threw one of his touchdowns were on the 1-yard line to Patrick DeMarco. He also threw one to Tolio, one of those tight ends that I cannot pronounce the name of. 1 reception, 32 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, you're looking at both of these plays where these TDs happened. Devontae Freeman marched the ball down the field. He could have had a bigger week than he had. Don't worry. Freeman is a guaranteed RB2 week in and week out with low-end RB1 upside. Yep. Sproles is still the running back to own in Philly. I like Jordan Matthews a lot this week. He had 6 receptions for 88 yards. He really moved up my list. Unfortunately, I still have this game going to the Falcons 28-21.
You know, you talk about Sproles, he is the man to own in this offense, but there's somebody else that you really hated when you were the Sproles owner, Dave. Ryan Matthews. Now, I know Sproles is getting all the touches. Matthews has 11 touches for 26 yards in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
he got 2 touchdowns.
Last week was 5 rushes for 15 yards and a TD. Kenjon Barner was 1 rush for 3 yards and a TD.
This?
I still want Sproles.
It's annoying.
Here's why they do it, because they know that Sproles is a lockdown RB1, and when they bring Ryan Matthews into the game, it sets them up for what you mentioned earlier before we started recording, that play action.
Yep.
You know, and things of that nature, and that's where his TDs have really came in. He's become our vulture of the league.
He is the vulture of the league. I mean, 11 touches. 26 yards.
That's something that we're going to be doing every week.
It's
kind of like our Belichick or bust, but we're doing a vulture of the league and a vulture of the week. Comment on our page, email us, write in. Who's your vulture? Who screwed up your day by getting a TD over your guy? Let us know. We'd love to hear about it.
All right, Bears Buccaneers. Speaking of games, like the Jets Rams, this is similar. We got 2 disappointing teams this year. The Bucs are 0-4 at home. The Bears haven't won on the road. Something's got to give. One of these teams has to buck that trend. Smoking
no
Dave.
fun.
Right. To buck that trend. Smoking Jay, he loves him some Alshon. Jordan Howard, well, guess what? Bucks haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher yet this year. We touched on Doug Martin earlier. Keep an eye on him. Mike Evans, he got cleared. I think he's poised for a big game.
Number 3 in the league.
Yeah.
Wide receiver.
I still think the Bears finally pulling out on the road. Bears 28, Buccaneers 24.
Well, I think I like Tampa Bay more when they had those 90s uniforms, the little Buccaneer.
Yes, the creamsicle. The creamsicle.
Those are some pretty tight unis. There's not a lot here for me to say. Here's something. I don't hate Sam Bradford. I just don't. I mean, is he the quarterback you want to own? No, but is he someone that,
Sam Bradford?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I'm a game ahead here. No, you're fine. No, absolutely. Well, here's someone I don't hate. Sam Bradford.
We can move that other game.
No, I mean, here's just a couple things that I want to say about the Tampa game. I enjoy Mike Evans a lot. He's someone that scares me this week. The Bears have a pretty good secondary. We talked to Kane last week, who was on our podcast. I asked him the question, how do you feel about Alshon Jeffrey with Jay Cutler back? You know, and I was pretty high on Alshon. I said that he would have a big week, and he ended up doing that. And I think that's going to continue for the rest of the season. Now, just segueing into this Vikings game, Sam Bradford, 31 for 40, 273 yards, and a touchdown. He threw passes that were caught by 10 different players. He spreads the ball around.
Yes, he does.
You mentioned Hillman. He led the team 7 rushes, 30 yards, 1 reception, 32 yards. Last time Asiata played the Redskins, he did find the end zone 3 times. Diggs, he seems to be the wide receiver that you want to own there, but if you want to talk to someone that's close to my heart and I think is going to get you his numbers this week because he won't have a great defender on him in Josh Norman, and that will be Adam Thielen. I think Bradford finds him for a TD this week, however it is, however many yards. Standard play is great play there. How do you feel about this game, Daryl?
Well, I guess last week in that overtime loss to Detroit, Zimmer he was mic'd up. He was overheard saying adversity. I love adversity. Well, he's got it. They've lost 3 in a row coming out of the bye. They're struggling. They can't run the ball. Bradford's been sacked 13 times in the last 3 games. The Vikings D, they've only got 1 turnover the last 2 games. They're struggling a little bit. But I think Washington, coming off their bye, their left tackle, Trent Williams, probably their best offensive lineman. He's starting his 4-game suspension this week. Their right tackle, limited, might not play. They're already starting a rookie on the offensive line. I think Minnesota's defense rebounds a little bit, does enough to allow Minnesota to win. I agree with you on Bradford spreading the ball around. If they can keep them upright, Minnesota 20, Washington 17, just because I think Minnesota's defense is going to do enough for them to win this game.
I went 28-24.
Minnesota?
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty close again. KC, Carolina. Now, this was something that just blew my mind. When I saw this, I was like, no way, this is true. I had to look, double check. It is true. Chiefs are 16-2 in their last 18 games. They started out 1-5 last year, regular season, mind you, and they're 16-2. They're 17-3 at home, but they're not at home this week. But guess what? Andy Reid's 7-0 on the East Coast since he's been KC's coach. Carolina, they've kind of turned it around. They're rushing D. They're only giving up 77 yards a game, 3.3 per carry, 5 touchdowns all year. They held David Johnson to 24 yards on 10 carries. I don't see their defense being enough. I think Kansas City, Kelsey, I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder this week. I think Alex Smith is going to make this offense hum, whether or not Macklin plays or is effective. I still have KC 24, Carolina 21. They're still hot. They're still riding. They might even win this division.
You know, I hate to talk politics, and I keep it off here, so it's not complete politics, but I just want to know, Kelsey throwing the towel last week, did you hear as big of an uproar with that as, say, a time when Odell Beckham Jr. threw a tantrum on the sideline of any sort and wasn't even removed from the game? And Kelsey was removed from the game. We got to remember this, people. I kind of have a problem with that. I tried to trade a gentleman, Jordan Reed, this week. He said he was content with keeping Kelsey because he threw that towel, and it just kind of got me to thinking, Cam Newton, he takes these hits. He doesn't get these calls. I know he's another cup of tea. He's the Shaquille O'Neal or the LeBron James of the NFL where you hit him and he doesn't move. I just wanted to say that for some of our listeners out there who might care.
Well, you see, like, I get where you're coming from. You see Josh Norman shooting a bow and arrow and he's getting fined. You see Cam taking shots where they don't get hit. You see Clay Matthews breaking Hoyer's arm when he led with the helmet. Sorry, guys, he did. And getting fined for it afterwards, but no penalty in the game. Another person we're going to talk about, Richard Sherman. You see him taking out a kicker's legs. I don't get it. I don't care that he put a finger on the ball. He rolled his shoulder into that kicker's legs. The whistle blew. Whether he hurt it or not is not his fault. The Seattle's 12th man, they always talk about it being their advantage. Guess what? That was pure disadvantage. You got to call that there. And the league doesn't care about that. They give them fines. Don't give them penalties in the game. But then you see Kelsey disrespecting the ref, which I did love. I love how he threw the ref because he got raped on the call. I get it. How does he not get fined if he got ejected from the game? You would think there would be...
Well, the big point here is
it's inconsistency.
Well, us at Double D's, we love all shapes, colors, and sizes. You know, we don't discriminate here. That's for sure. With this game, Kelsey, 5 receptions, 58 yards. Albert Wilson was the man last week, not Tyreek Hill, because Lord knows Jeremy Maclin has become invisible in this offense. Wilson, 3 receptions for 42 yards and a touchdown. Cam had a cool 20 for 32, 225, 1 TD. 7 rushes for 16 yards, still pulls out the W. Things just aren't looking right in Carolina, but for some reason, Greg Olsen, 5 receptions, 52 yards, and a touchdown. I think he has the opposite week this week. I think they focus in on him and Kelvin Benjamin. I have this score. Cam Newton, 21. Chiefs, 16. Street Killers.
I think that's our first difference on picks.
I did not give a score for the Bears-Tampa. I am undecided on whose defense is going to show up. I think they're both going to score, but who's going to be able to hold the other opponent down?
And who's going to turn up? Is it going to be Smokin' Jay throwing 3 picks, or is it Jameis being bad Jameson throwing 3 picks? Any one of the, or both. These are all options. All right. Houston, Jacksonville. We got Houston, Brock Osweiler, big flop, for a free agent signing. Somehow they're sitting at 5-3. They only got 1 game against a team over 500 for the rest of the year, and that's the Raiders in Mexico City. Houston's winless on the road, but they're playing Jacksonville. Gus Bradley, he's 12-36 in 3 years as a coach. I think he's got to be on the hot seat. They dropped $350 million in free agency in the last 2 years for 10 starters, and they still suck. Bortles isn't the answer. It's starting to look that way. I mean, he throws the ball a lot. Does he have enough talent? Is it on him? I don't know. Jacksonville doesn't have enough to win this game. Houston 31, Jacksonville 17. Lamar Miller healthy. DeAndre, I'm sorry if you drafted him high, but you're stuck with Osweiler. Lamar, he's going to get his. Jacksonville, you trust AR-15. He's probably going to drop one in the end zone with 1 touchdown.
If I had a glove, I would have to slap you in the face and say, I challenge you to a duel! My good sir, last week I said jokingly that I just might have to have TJ Yeldon at my number 30 spot for running backs, and I should have. 7 rushes, 33 yards, 5 receptions, 32 yards, and a touchdown. Chris Ivory says, pick me up off the waiver wire. Who dropped me? Well, I told you to. 18 rushes, 107 yards. These guys are garbage. I listened to Maurice Jones-Drew yesterday on Fantasy Friends or Now, or whatever fun show that he's on, and he's like, someone called in or wrote in, like, hey, should I stash Chris Ivory? And I'm like, yeah, stash him in the trash, because if you're banking on him come playoff time, it's the wrong player to bank on. I get moving pieces to have players that are going to have fantasy value and relevancy week 15, 16, 17. I get that. I moved Gronk for that reason. I'm not positive that anyone in the division, including the Dolphins, are coming back to scare the Patriots for at least a division. Maybe a wild card.
Maybe a wild card. That's doubtful.
I look at this, AR-15, 7 receptions, 76 yards, and a TD. If you look at where he's caught at least 3 to 4 of his TDs this year, it's been on the 1-yard line. He runs a very good route. He goes up, and he curls instantly, does like a little half spin to turn the other way, and gets his touchdown. I don't hate AR-15 this week. I have him in my top 10. Blake Bortles is the garbage time man. I think we just call this team the garbage time band. I don't know, because it is a band of misfits that can go out and get W's, and I think the bigger misfits here are the Texans. I have the Jaguars 20, Texans 17.
Fair enough, sir. Now, coming up to a game of grinders, we got the Dolphins-Chargers in San Diego. Both teams, they found a new identity. I mean, the Dolphins used to love to throw the ball for some reason. They weren't consistent last year with Lamar Miller. He'd have good games, and then they'd just go away from him. San Diego, Phillip Rivers, he's avoiding his annual second-half collapse due to injury, due to whatever. Why? Both these teams changed their identity. They're just pounding the ball. They're like, hey, we've got Melvin Gordon. He's effective. Hey, we got Jay Ajayi. He's effective. Miami's got 3 straight wins. They're staying out west this whole week because they play the Rams next week. They're looking for their first 4-game winning streak since 2008. I think they get it here. Both Melvin and Ajayi, they're going to ride them. Both teams are. I have Miami 28, Chargers 24 in a slow it down, grind it out running game.
Who else survived Melvin Gordon last week? This guy did, and it was not by much. He had a dominating game. 32 rushes, 196 yards, 4 receptions for 65 yards. That is a total of 36 touches. That's not saying that he wasn't targeted more than that, too, in the pass game. All I want to say is, Tomlin, open your eyes! Give Le'Veon the ball. You're making Melvin Gordon look like an MVP compared to Le'Veon Bell, and I don't like it. Phillip Rivers, 24 for 33, 275 yards, 2 TDs. He's finding a way to get it done without Hunter Henry, without Keenan Allen. I mean, without some of his offensive line. They've gotten injured. I don't have names for you. You can Google them. I'm not a paid suit. I do have a differential in score again with this game. I have the Chargers 31, Miami 28. So, the Chargers are at home. Josh Lambo laughs when he doesn't get to kick the ball, so they figured out, hey, if we hold the snap down, this guy can actually make it. I think that's the deciding factor here against the Finns.
You know, what really helps Rivers, too, is in previous years when he had the injuries, this year he's still got the injuries at receiver, but they're deep with mediocre good receivers. You know, they don't have that Keenan Allen anymore, but Tyrell Williams, you know, he's a big target.
Pretty decent.
Emmons decent. Travis Benjamin stretches the defense. Gates, guess what? He's still a big target.
It's power of the bolo tie.
There you go. How do you argue with the bolo tie? All right. Niners, Cardinals. What a game. Cardinals are favored by 13.5. They're sitting at 3-4-1. The last time these teams played, Cardinals had 172 yards rushing. Bad because the Niners are allowing 193 per game all year. They're losing by an average of 37-20 during their 7-game losing streak. Gonzo, he showed some life. Not enough. Palmer's showing his age. David Johnson's going off again. J.J. Nelson, he's emerging. Player to look out for. I have Cardinals 38, Niners 10.
What do you think the over-under was on prop bets in Vegas last week? Of Juwan Harris getting tackled by his dreads. That was called here at Double D's, baby. Oh, I love that. 10 rushes, 59 yards, 5 receptions, 83 yards, and a touchdown, and 1 tackled by dreads on Juwan Harris's stat sheet. We had Colin Kaepernick, who I had ranked in my top 15. He hit his numbers to achieve that ranking. 24 for 39, 398 yards, 2 TDs. He did have an interception. I'll accept it. 5 rushes, 23 yards, and 1 fumble lost. But let's not forget, these Saints forced a lot of fumbles. Mike Davis also had a fumble loss. Yep. I think they had 3 or 4 total fumble loss that day. I do give the 49ers a little love. 17. Arizona finishing it out strong with David Johnson with 28.
All right, Dave. Cowboys, Steelers in Pittsburgh. Now, they're saying Romo's healthy, but it doesn't matter. Cowboys are 7-1 with Dak. They're going to ride Zeke. Pittsburgh's sitting at 4-4. They need a win here. Otherwise, they're going to fall behind in the Central. Berger, we were talking about his splits last week. He's now at 20-19 on the road, 51-13 at home for touchdowns to interceptions. Being at home is a big difference for Berger. I think Berger, another week extra playing is going to matter. He's AB. He's getting his. Le'Veon, I agree with you, Dave. They need to feed Le'Veon more than they do. I'm sorry. He needs to get 30 targets, touches, combos, run the ball 15, 20 times, get thrown to 10 times a game. Whether he catches them or not, that's on him. I don't think Pittsburgh can stop Zeke. They got gashed by Ajayi. They can be run on. I got Cowboys 35, Pittsburgh 31.
I liked what I seen from the Steelers last week. I didn't love it. Big Ben, 2 weeks coming off his knee scoping. You could tell that he was ailed by it. I'm not making excuses. I don't even take the blocked punt that turned into a touchdown for the Ravens into play here. That drop touchdown pass by Sammy Coates was huge. We ended up punting, holding the Ravens, coming back and scoring again, which could have been touchdown, kickoff, stop, come and score again. Anyways, Big Ben 23 for 45, 264, a TD throwing, 3 rushes, 3 yards, and a touchdown running. Bell, 20 total touches. It's something that I need to see go up 10 to 15 total touches. This guy needs to see the ball drastically more. I get the Ravens were focusing in on him, but give him 10 more touches, and he can break one of those runs to go super deep. My favorite receiver in this game is Eli Rogers. 6 receptions for 103 yards. I'll post a screenshot on Twitter that I put up there before week 1 had started, and I said that Eli Rogers would have X amount of touches and a touchdown that game, and he did have that. This guy is wicked fast. He's someone to look out for. Ezekiel Elliott, yes, he's going to go get his. Dak Prescott is still suspect to me. He's got some things to show me. He can't find Dez Bryant, his best receiver on the team. I don't see how that works going forward. I can see them making the playoffs, yes, but when it comes to playoffs, that's when you need your best players to be able to shine because you're going to be playing the best defenses. I have this game close. I do have the Steelers winning at home, 31-28.
It was a tough game to pick. It really was. I know you're a Steelers fan, but this was like even the Miami game. I leaned towards Miami mainly a little bit because I was a Dolphins fan. It was a hard pick. It really was. Seattle, New England. New England's got one of the top scoring offenses. They're averaging 30 points per game. 11-4 coming off the bye with the hoodie. Seattle's got the number 1 scoring D. 15.8 points a game. Wilson was looking good last week. Cam Chancellor's back. Sherman, we were touching on that on his calls, like on Julio. He had both his arms in that Falcons game on that last pass. He's not going to get away with those calls in New England. Teams were moving the ball in Seattle a little better. They were running it. Shady kind of gave them problems. Cam Chancellor back is going to change that a little bit. I don't know if Dion Lewis is completely 100% or not. Regardless of that, Russell being better, Jimmy Graham and his one-handed catches. New England at 7-1 at home. I can't pick against them. New England 24, Seattle 20.
All right, Daryl. Can you tell me who had the most amount of rushing yards for Seattle last week?
Wow, last week, most amount of rushing yards? Probably Russell Wilson.
Can you tell me the amount of yards you think Russell Wilson had to get to be the leading rusher last week?
Well, under 40.
Okay. 10 yards.
He had 10.
DJ Prosise, 3 rushes, 9 yards. 1 reception for 6 yards, which we're not counting towards the rushing.
True.
Christine Michael, 5 rushes for 1 yard and a touchdown. They tied for the most. It was a 3-way tie.
Their offensive line sucks.
But we're looking at the upside of comboing the 2 running backs who had 8 total and Russell only had 3. For 10 and a TD, I mean, it's insane. Look for that to be different this week. I talked up CJ Prosise. I would like Christine Michael to be the first and second down back. Semi-switch it out. Keep Prosise as your passing down back. That's how you're going to scalp these Patriot defenders alive. These guys are pretty good on defense, but again, I use Shady McCoy as the example. And when you just dump the ball off to a player like that, CJ Prosise is not Shady McCoy, but he is very good. Jimmy Graham, 8 receptions, 103 yards, 1 touchdown. Doug Baldwin, who I really, really like, 6 receptions, 89 yards. Look for him to have somewhat of a week. My sleeper wide receiver here in this game is Hogan. I think he could have a very good game against the Seattle defense. Besides Richard Sherman, they can be exposed out there. It's been shown all year. I do have this game, New England 27, Seattle 24.
It's hard to pick against the hooded one.
I mean, obviously,
really
we can touch on it. We know, I say it every week, Gronk, look for him to get 4 or 5 catches, anywhere from 80 to 100 yards, and his touchdown. Anything beyond that is just incredible as it is. I mean, we talked about the running backs. You want LeGarrette Blount in your standards. I mean, you can play him in PPR if you want, but he's more touchdown dependent. I like the running back play of Dion Lewis.
Right. I mean, and it comes down to you don't sit your studs, even against Seattle's D. Are you going to sit Brady? No. Is Brady going to have the game he had against, say, the Browns or the Bills? No. I wouldn't think. I mean, Seattle's D is a step above them. Big step. But still, Brady's at home. He's going to get his. Gronk's going to get his. All right. Bengals, Giants. The Giants, they got to prove they're for real. They got kind of a one-dimensional offense. It's based off of a frustratingly inconsistent quarterback. They're doing their Ring of Honor thing with Justin Tuck and Tom Coughlin. I think they're going to be a little fired up for it. They're at home. Paul Perkins, he's starting to show himself in the backfield, showing a little better ability than Rashad Jennings in my mind. But Cincinnati made the playoffs 7 of 13 years. They're 0-7 in the playoffs. I mean, their coach is on the hot seat just as well. There's a couple others out there. I think McCarthy might be one if the Packers fall out of the playoffs. You got AJ. I love AJ Green. I don't like Andy Dalton so much. He's still going to get his. Odell, he's coming around. This was a very tough game for me to pick, Dave. It really was. I think the Giants being at home, I have them 24, Bengals 20. I think they can keep up with Cincinnati here. They have the offensive firepower to do it if Eli's on. He's at home. I think Eli's gonna have a decent game this week. He's gonna get his.
We were talking about the Giants earlier here. I opened up your eyes to Paul Perkins. We kind of had a little bit of a debate, and you've seen it. I mean, it's just we say it each week. If Rashard Jennings can, hold on to the ball, it's his job, and it's not even that's taking it away right now. Paul Perkins has tremendous speed. He has great cutting ability. He has strength. You look last week, 11 rushes, 32 yards, 3 receptions, 15 yards. Those are Perkins numbers. Jennings, 11 rushes, 26 yards, 3 receptions for 13 yards. I like Paul Perkins moving forward. He's on my ad list. If you have a stash spot, you go and you stash this player right now. He's a great fit for any team. Eli Rogers Eli Manning. Yeah, Eli Rogers. Love me them Steelers. 22 for 36, 257 yards, 4 touchdowns. We know he's throwing a couple picks.
Yep.
We get that.
It happens.
Odell Beckham Jr., 4 receptions, 46 yards, 2 touchdowns, though. Sold him when he was high again. I sold Zeke for the 3rd time. I'm going to stop mid-form. Oh, man, I got to stop doing that.
Have you even played Zeke in a week this year?
One time.
Okay, I was wondering. I know you had him 3 times, and I didn't even think you had played him ever. I always thought you got him and traded him right away.
I went and got A.J. Green again after I got rid of him. But how can you say no? I have A.J. Green ranked 1 this week. I mean, he's going to be an amazing keep.
And you dodged a bye week.
Oh, a huge bye week there. That was huge. I got AB back, too. Sterling Shepard reemerged. 3 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown. I like the Bengals here. The reason why it's not easy to run on the Giants. I mean, it's not easy to run on any team except the Steelers, apparently, because everyone and their grandmother does it. But you have Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard, a very good bag of worms, where it's like they bail Andy Dalton out from looking really bad because they can gain yardage and do their thing as well. I do have this game, Bengals 28, Giants 21.
Wasn't AJ, you opened my eyes this day, but he was targeted 18 times last week?
The week before the bye, 18 times.
Right.
That's why, and every time we go to draft, I avoid this guy because he's somewhat injury prone. He either gets hurt or he has a crap QB in Andy Dalton. I despise Andy Dalton. I truly do. This guy When he gets 3 touchdowns every week, go see if he rushed for one, because he probably did from the 1-yard line. It's when you get targeted 18 times, that's insane. Again, I'm going to go back to just what Odell got receptions on. I can't count targets, but I don't see it being above 12. He had 4 receptions.
Yeah.
AJ Green had 12 catches, and 18 targets. That's an insane number, standard or PPR. He's my number 1 target to go trade for. They have a decent fantasy schedule down the stretch, depending how deep your playoffs go. I love the Buffalo Bills down the stretch with their play. If you can go get yourself Shady McCoy.
The Colts. You were touching on the
Watson. Colts too.
Yep.
Sammy Watson is one of those, maybe he's in your free agency or he's a very cheap trade play. If someone's stashing him, he'll be back week 12. The Colts have an amazing schedule. Frank Gore, probably my sleeper running back to go get because he won't cost you as much as your David Johnson, the Pittsburgh Steelers have a pretty favorable schedule down the stretch. Le'Veon Bell, those type of guys. Frank Gore, he has good value, but he's not going to cost you that.
Well, he's not the name that everybody gets sold on. They get sold to Todd Gurley and all these names.
Right.
Let's face it, Frank Gore's getting you. This year, it's like he's either getting a touchdown or he's getting 75-plus yards, and it's pretty much a touchdown a game, and it's like, bam, PPR, pencil in Frank Gore for 15.
I'm coming for Julio Jones there.
Julio. We got Belichick or bust. Speaking of Julio, he's not my Belichick or bust, but they're both wide receivers for me this week. I got J.J. Nelson. He's kind of turning into a potential stud. He's got that ability there. If Carson Palmer, they get away from running the ball, which I don't think they're going to. They're going to run the ball a lot, but it's going to open it up for somebody to get open downfield. I think that this week that's going to be J.J. Nelson. My other guy, Tavon Austin, and here's why. This man has been an every other week performer for fantasy pretty much all year long, minus the first 2 games of the year. He established after that an every other week pattern. I forgot about it last week. He shit the bed on me. But he's the guy that 1 week he gets 15, 18, and then the next week he gets 4, and then the next week he gets 16, and then it's 6, and then 20. I think he's going to have a big week against a weak Jets pasty. They're going to get away. They've been getting away from Gurley. They're not going to be able to run on the Jets very easily. And Keenum's going to throw the ball 45 times again. We might see Jared Goff by the end of the year if they're smart. Maybe Goff isn't even good enough to beat out Keenum.
I touched on both of my Belichick or bust already today quite heavily, so I don't want to drain your brain power and listening energy on it. I have Taylor Gabriel, the wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. He's looking to emerge as the number 2 wide receiver over Sanu, who I don't hate, but what they're doing with Gabriel with some plays out of the backfield, finding him on deep routes in the end zone, he's a very big play. I like him this week again. And CJ Prosise, look for him to be the man this week. This is why I like it. Boomer bust, Belichick or bust. These are players with low risk, high reward value. Someone that can go out there, get you multiple touchdowns, a lot of catches in PPR, or the Patriots can lock down.
That's possible. I mean, Belichick's, everybody forgets, he's a defensive coordinator first. He was the linebackers coach on that Giants team with Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks. This man knows how to game plan and shut down your best weapon. I mean, he's the hooded one. You don't go against the man.
Who do you have in the McGregor Alvarez?
Oh man, depends. It depends on what Eddie Alvarez where his head's at. If he gets smart and takes him to the ground right away, he can beat McGregor. I don't like McGregor. I used to. I don't like the fact that he goes out, wins a belt in a weird weight class, and then doesn't defend that belt. He goes multiple fights where he's like, I'm just going to rack up all these belts. Well, guess what? The UFC never used to allow people to do that. They've turned people down in the past from doing it. They're saying, if you want to fight for another belt and you're not going to defend your older one, you're going to vacate it. And that's just the way it is. You might get a chance in a fight or two to go fight for it again, but you're going to vacate that belt. And it's the way it should be. Dana White's got to do it. He's selling something, and he's selling Conor McGregor. They create fighters. They kind of did it with Rousey to a point, And then Rousey kind of got exposed a little bit. She did. She was just bigger than everybody, stronger than everybody, and she'd take people down. McGregor, same thing. You know, they pick and choose his fights, so he's got a chance. I mean, you put him against a real good ground fighter, he gets exposed. If you put him against a guy that's got a chin and he can take a shot, McGregor doesn't know what to do because all he's got is his left, albeit it's a good left, but he fights people that generally are much smaller than him.
Yep.
And he tries big man in them. That's why he struggled against Diaz. That second Diaz fight, it goes another round. Guess what? Diaz wins that fight, in my opinion. And he almost won it in the regulation amount of time. Why? He can't knock Diaz out.
Well, and I think they said that McGregor has a chance to be the first fighter to hold 2 belts in 2 different weight classes at the same time.
Right, because they never used to allow that. They wouldn't allow you to do different weight classes. But, well, it was a good week for football this week. Ravens-Browns on Thursday night. What a matchup there. That's almost as exciting as Jets-Rams. Everybody, thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation.
That, and again, make sure to keep writing in comments, questions, trade offers you might have, anything you guys even need a little bit of advice for. We don't even want to say help. If you just want a second opinion, we're here for you. Just let us know.
Right, kick some ideas off of us. We love feedback. We love interacting with people. Thank you again for listening. Good luck this week, and may the fantasy gods be with you. Gryffindor!